Let's explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
All right, welcome everybody. Oh, I'm waiting here for Gordon, who has just entered the stage. How are you doing, Gordon?
I'm good. I'm good, man. How are you today?
I'm all right. Keeping on. I see that you got a new camera. The thing seemed a little bit crisper by a slight margin. That's good.
Yeah. My old one stopped working the other day, and I've been using the laptop like default camera for the past few days, which is not great. But
Yeah.
so I finally bit the bullet and went out and got one this morning. But yeah. So anyway, technology.
Yeah, I had actually invested in like a $350 microphone at a certain point, and I found that just going back to my $50 Blue Snowball was actually way better. The quality of this little thing is better than anything else that I've spent money on. So
is that a microphone or a camera? I guess
no,
it's
this is a microphone, just a mic. Yeah.
But
also the camera. The camera's pretty cheap. It's like $40 as well. I tried like higher end cameras, and I just like this little easy Logitech thing.
Yeah, this thing's like, it was like $35, but it's funny. Like, I actually didn't even think the laptop camera was terrible. It's just that it's hard to get like the angle right, and it like is so zoomed in on your face that I have to like push the laptop so far away from me, you know. So anyway,
yeah, you don't want to get too much into people's personal space, even if it's digital. So yeah, no, look, man, we're in week 2 of the Iran war. Definitely some thoughts to share about that, some analysis, both in the current situation, but also in some of the narratives that have been spun that I'm encountering. I'm sure you're encountering a lot of the same things, fallacies that are worrying. That I'd like to sort of share a few observations about. Maybe the audience has also encountered some of these narratives too. But before we do anything, let's maybe listen to a word from one or two of today's sponsors, and then we'll jump right into it. The first sponsor that I see on this list today is Rattlesnake Meats. So here we go. What's really on your plate? Grocery store beef could have dozens of DNA profiles. Chicken labeled organic or natural. Often just processed and shipped in bulk from the same 2 companies, no matter the store or the label. At Rattlesnake, they control every step: raising, aging, packaging. No subsidies, no big ag middlemen, just real honest meat that tastes like it should. Order straight from the farmer. Order from Rattlesnake Meat Company today. Head to rattlesnakemeats.com/Badlands, promo code Badlands to get started today. All right, so that's a word from Rattlesnake Meats. And next up, we'll listen to Rise Attire.
What up, Badlanders? Are you ready to rock something new in 2026? Well, as always, we got you covered with the Rise Badlands Native Collection. Built from the rich tones and rugged terrain of the Dakotas, equal parts beautiful and brutal. Old roots, new vibe. Whether you got gators in your backyard or you have to take a bush plane to the post office, Badlanders are worldwide. Different dirt, same tribe. By the way, your friends at Rise have a deal for you. Show up at GART rocking your native gear. Swing by our booth and get in to win a free Badlands Rise hoodie of your choice. And don't forget, every order throws fuel on the fire of the Made in USA parallel economy. So grab something now at badlandsmedia.tv/rise.
All right, cool. So there's a lot of entry points into the topic of today's show, which is basically reality, and different hypotheses about what's shaping reality. Definitely, there's been a lot of disappointment. There's some hope. I know that. Let's start with this. Maybe Putin and Trump just had a conversation. What do you know about that? Do you know what they were talking about?
Are you referring to the one that occurred, I think, on Monday?
Yeah.
So my understanding, I covered that on my show yesterday. My understanding is that lasted an hour. They said it was the first time that they had spoken since December, which I find a little surprising. But Yeah, they discussed both the Iran conflict and the Ukraine conflict. Um, you know, my suspicion is that we're going to see those two conflicts merge in terms of diplomacy and like how it's all handled, like how it's done. And as I've long suspected, and I still continue to suspect, Russia is going to somehow be involved in the Israel situation. It's just more and more it's pivoting towards that in game. So yeah, that was a big discussion point. I know energy was a big discussion point. Putin had announced that they were potential. I think he announced before the call that they were basically going to stop selling Europe natural gas. He was kind of like, if y'all are just going to keep messing around with us, with jerking us around with this NATO Ukraine situation, we'll just cut off your energy. You won't have energy anymore. Something, by the way, that Trump warned them about during his first term famously at the 2018, I believe. I think it was the G7. It may have been the G20. But again, that famous photo of Trump sitting there like this with Angela Merkel like leaning over the table. That conversation was about the fact that Trump was like, why am I, the United States, paying to defend you, Germany, when you buy all your energy from Russia? Like, I'm paying to defend you from a Russian threat when your entire economy is dependent on Russia. That doesn't make any sense. So he's like, so either you need to pay your fair share or you need to change your relationship with Russia, which obviously it wasn't going to happen. So you need to pay your fair share in NATO, or we need to discuss like what NATO's like long-term objectives are. And that's what triggered these European leaders to get so angry. They're like, how dare you expect us to spend money? Like, the hubris of it all. But anyway, I digress. I think right after that phone call, if I recall correctly, the sequence of events was Trump had the phone call with Putin. He then held, I don't remember if it was a press conference. It might have been an interview with CBS News, but he appeared on television and made the statement that, I think we're way ahead of schedule with this whole Iran thing. I think it might actually be over. Like, it might be completely over, what we're trying to achieve. And that led to the price of oil crashing from $96 to about $84, where it's trading right around, last I checked, I think it was trading in the mid 80s. Sunday it was trading, I think, as high as 119. And it was hovering right around 100 when Trump and Putin spoke. It crashed initially, I think, from 119 down to like the high 90s upon the news that the IEA, I think it is, an international group of oil producers, the Arabs and others.
You mean OPEC or? The IEA is more atomic energy, right?
They called it the IEA.
The IEA, the International Energy. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Okay,
yeah. It's like OPEC and other groups as well. But they released 400 million barrels of reserves out into the marketplace, which helped balance out the supply demand issues. So that crashed the price of the price down from 119 to like high 90s. And then Putin had the phone call, and then Trump came out and said, you know what, the Iran war might be winding this thing down. And so that crashed the price down to the mid 80s. And that's important because, that had the price of oil, my understanding, and I'm not an expert on the oil markets, but my understanding is that the price had remained above $100 a barrel much longer, that we would have seen the price at the pump go up like $5 a gallon on average. So, that is, I think, Trump and Putin maybe managing the global economy a little bit. I'll be interested to see more of what happens between Trump and Putin. But again, like, I think that relationship is so much more advanced and stronger than we've been led to believe, at least in the public optics. I'm way more interested, however, in Israel and what's happening there.
Yeah, well, just quick, I noticed that on the Wall Street Journal there was a strange news item 2 days ago, which was basically just a screenshot. USA has big favor to ask of China: buy less oil from Russia, more from America. That was a weird one, where Besant described a continuing effort to try to get China to instead buy American oil and gas products instead of using Russia, which is a similar kind of, it's a very weird line because on the one hand, the U.S. has been very adamant, both through the Biden and even Trump administration, that China is the primary strategic threat. You know, the multipolar alliance is led by China, is trying to destroy the U.S. dollar. That has to be stopped. And then to have a statement like that is weird. At the same time, as Modi had just met with Putin, with Trump on March 2nd, I think, right? And part of that discussion too was efforts to try to get India to stop buying Russian gas and instead buy from the U.S. to try to create a demand in some ways as well on Venezuela, which is very difficult to process their low grade. They've got a lot of oil, but from what I've been reading, the oil is very, very, very low quality crude and very difficult to refine. So very, very costly to get that up and running. And they're trying to create more of a demand for that market to justify, I guess, as you said, the markets, to try to sort of massage the markets a little bit. India seems to have been very polite, but after Modi left and returned back to India, the Indian Foreign Ministry said, well, we're not gonna be told who to buy from as well. So implying that they're not going to stop getting their discounted Russian oil while at the same time trying to keep a good relation. So you got these different efforts. And I don't know if there's like a method to that, or if this is really what it appears to be, a degree of incompetence and lack of foresight in terms of doing things in the Middle East that are resulting in some hectic maneuvers. But what are your thoughts on the this call to, or this request upon China?
Well, I've been very skeptical of this whole situation. I've just been kind of like in a wait and see mode, because obviously I was blindsided by the start of the Iran war. And so it's been kind of like, all right, let's wait and see what is actually happening here, because we've seen patterns play out with other quote unquote conflicts, Venezuela being, top of mind. And that clearly was not what it appeared to be, because the Maduro regime remains completely intact. And now Trump, he normalized relations with Venezuela, I believe, over the weekend, maybe on Friday. That's like official now. We've officially normalized all relations with Venezuela. So like all sanctions lifted, everything back to normal. And he's called them, our greatest ally now. And which is just, it's very funny because one of the big issues, in my opinion, that the political hegemony of the uniparty in America and the West in general had with Venezuela was the fact that Hugo Chavez was so ardently anti-Zionist, ardently anti-Israel, and very pro-Palestine. I think that was one of the biggest reasons that Venezuela was vilified. That, and of course, like his his relationship, if you want to call it that, with the oil company, with the oil industry, and how he basically kicked the oil industry out of Venezuela. Although upon deeper digging, I learned that he actually offered most of everybody a seemingly fair deal to get out. He was in a either renegotiate our contracts, or we will pay you what we owe you. We will buy you out and you can go our separate ways. And I think 22 companies took that. So anyway, point is that Delcy Rodriguez was part of Hugo Chavez's original regime. Obviously vice president under Maduro. She was an oil executive actually under Hugo Chavez. And she maintains the same anti-Zionist views as Hugo Chavez and Maduro. So the fact that we've normalized with this government, despite, and like that rhetoric hasn't changed. I don't think that position has changed. They're not out there thumping their chest the way they were, the way Maduro has been for the past year or so. But the fact that all played out the way it did, again, it's incongruent with all the other rhetoric that we're seeing revolving around Israel and the Trump administration with the other, with specifically Iran. So then to go straight from Venezuela to Iran was strange. Like, okay, well, so we just basically made peace and normalized with an anti-Israel government. Didn't really make any demands of them other than just Maduro had to go. And now we're working with them. So now we're shifting to Iran. The two real big oil producers in the world, by the way, Venezuela and Iran, and both of them have been hamstrung in terms of their output because of sanctions that have been imposed on them and external economic forces that have been imposed on them over the past 20 years. My understanding is that like Iran has an additional like 7 million barrels of oil it could be producing. I think it's a day, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And right now it's only producing 3. And all of that is because of the sanctions that the U.S. and the West have put on Iran because of Israel. So unlocking that industry, that oil industry, I think that's part of what's going on here. But given the way that things have unfolded with Venezuela, that has given me some hope that we're going to see something unfold in a way that is not the way Fox News wants to see it unfold. And I happened to be picking up my kids from my mom's house on Monday when this whole thing happened, when Trump came out and said this, and she, has Fox News on in the background all the time. And the people on Fox News were apoplectic at what Trump said. They were and it was I think it was like the comedy show. It was like Greg Gutfeld. They're supposed to be funny, and they were like screaming at the camera, "What does Trump think he's doing, leaving these religious crazies in charge in Iran? We got to take all those people out." So he's upset the right people. Like whenever I see those people upset, I know that we're doing the right thing, because I like to see the regime characters screaming at the camera and very upset. I think the thing that really bothered me the most with the Iran situation is seeing them so happy, like fat cats, right? So now that's a long-winded answer, and I didn't even address your question. The China, Russia, India thing is really interesting. I don't quite understand the dynamic, like what is the desired outcome? But to your point, India a month ago, early February 2nd, I think it was, Trump made an offer to India. He said, "Hey, if you stop buying this sanctioned oil from Russia, the discounted oil, which has benefited you significantly, India, I will lower tariffs 18% against India." And if I recall correctly, I think India, if they didn't take that offer, they definitely negotiated something with Trump, because I remember there being a happy outcome.
The tariffs were lowered from 50% or something down to 18.
I think 18%. I think is what the number was. So then fast forward a month, and now because of the strain on the Strait of Hormuz, Scott Bessent and Trump offer to lift the sanctions for India and say, "Hey, India, like you can now buy Russian oil and we won't bother you about it." And I think they gave him like a 3-day exemption, whatever it was. And then Scott Bessent turned around and said, "You know what? I think we're going to go ahead and maybe lift all the other sanctions against Russia and let other people buy Russian oil, because if we don't, obviously the global economy is going to be strained significantly." And then Trump had his phone call with Putin after Scott Bessent, I think, alluded to that. So again, all of these events seem to be connected.
So I missed that.
It's really goofy. Last point. It's really goofy that they're like going to China now and they're like, "Hey, China, stop buying from Russia and buy from us, please." It's weird, like weird, but I don't know. It almost feels like a wrestling soap opera, the way these, like the rhetoric, the public statements happen, right?
Yeah, it does feel like that a little bit. And if it wasn't for all of the death, I'd be like more inclined to take this, in a little bit more of a lighthearted way. But it's just like, I just spoke to Vanessa Bealey, my friend. She's a journalist who's been she lived in Syria for like 5 years and then had to leave when ISIS took over, and now she's in Lebanon. And so we did a little interview a few days ago, just so I could like ask her, like, what are you seeing from the ground in Lebanon? And it's pretty bad. I mean, I think the recent death count is something like 700 Lebanese civilians or so have been killed. And on top of that, Israel has a deal with Giuliani, the former head of ISIS in Syria, who's now the president, to allow for Israeli troops to enter into Lebanon from Syria. They share a long border.
Is that right?
Yeah, she actually shared this image here. I think it's this one here. So this features 4 entry points in Syria where Israeli troops have entered to carry out special operations. It's very opaque as far as what those are. I know that the invasion happened from the south, and there's still notifications to people living in south of Lebanon to evacuate, says from the Israeli side, saying like fire is going to come down from the sky if you don't evacuate. So what you choose to not to do is on you. So she knows many people. She's in the middle area of Lebanon, not in the south, but she knows many people who have pulled up, and there's a lot of arteries in highways that are totally packed of people trying to like leave, because we don't know what's going to happen next, but we know that certain attacks have been waged. There does seem to be a building up for something bigger by the greater Israel fanatics.
Yes.
You know, that there is this giddiness, this disturbing giddiness amongst the Ben Gvirites out there who are, it seems they see this now as like, you know, they're not just seeing this as just another geopolitical oil maneuver like has been the case in many of the bad decisions made in the past, but they're really seeing this now as fulfillment of prophecy. And I don't know, you've got that going on. Then you also have like the legislation that had been passed in the Knesset last year or last July that authorizes Israel to annex the West Bank. Now, they haven't acted upon it. It doesn't mandate it, but it does give them somehow they gave themselves authorization legally, I guess, to go and do that with a big chunk of Jordan whenever they should so wish. And certain people think, well, now's the time for that too. But definitely you've got that. And then you've got the attack on the oil refineries, right? That's another one that's very disturbing, is that I guess it was probably Israel. I'm not sure. I don't think the U.S. led in that one, because this is an attack on Iranian civilians that's destroyed this giant oil refinery or is an oil refinery? Is an oil?
No, it was 30 fuel depots.
Fuel depots, right? Okay, that's significant in Iran.
Yes, and actually, the reporting is that, and this seems to be confirmed by the behavior of Lindsey Graham. I was talking about this on my show yesterday. The Israelis didn't coordinate with the Americans on that. And when the Americans found out about it, this is coming from an Israeli official who told Barak Ravid this, and he put it in his article that he co-authored with Mark Caputo. Both of them have contacts in the Trump White House and have proven that through their reporting. The Israeli official told Barak Ravid that the message they received from the White House was WTF, what the fuck, when they found out that they did this. Because these fuel depots, Israel alleges, serve the IRGC, but the Americans say that these are actually civilian fuel depots. And not only is this going to, you know, escalate sentiment among the Iranian people against Israel in America, but it's also obviously going to impact the global oil market, which is a concern for obviously Trump, Putin, and everybody. So that led to Lindsey Graham coming out and actually putting a post saying, Israel, you need to be careful what you're targeting. Please be more judicious in your selection of targets. So even Lindsey Graham came out and like said, hey, y'all fucked up. Y'all need to slow down and stop doing things on your own. And then I think General Dan Kane, I just saw this morning, put out, I think he was doing a press briefing either this morning or yesterday, where he basically said that there are two different objectives here. There's the Israeli agenda, then there's the American agenda, and the Americans are working with the Israelis where their interests overlap, but Israel clearly has its own agenda, and they're pursuing their own agenda here. And so that's where I've landed now. I think, and I've been writing about this and talking about this, the way that this looks to me, and if you go back last week when Trump was meeting with Merz, the German prime minister, in the White House, and he was asked specifically about the comment that Marco Rubio made that Israel forced us into this war. And then Trump said, well, maybe I forced Israel into this war. You never know. Now, all of a sudden, Israel is getting pulverized. I mean, that's my understanding, is that Israel is just getting rocked right now. I don't know if you've seen the clips from BBC, and there's some Argentinian news outlets, and there's a Spanish news outlet as well, that are reporting that missiles are now hitting Tel Aviv with no siren going off. There's no alarm going off. There's no warning. The missiles are just coming in now. All Israelis have received a text message from the Iranian government that says, we have just targeted and taken out the final U.S. radar tower in the region. There are no more radar towers to detect our missiles. We are going to continue firing missiles. Leave this land now. Your government cannot protect you. There is no sheltering in place. And then he signed at the IRGC. And that seems to be confirmed by BBC reports, live shots of guys sitting there in front of Tel Aviv with the missiles coming down, and there's no alarm in the background. I played a clip from an Argentinian outlet where a guy was the reporter was in the shelter. There was a Israeli army officer in there giving an interview to other news outlets where he was shocked. He was like, there was no alarm. Why was there no alarm? Why are we not getting any alarms here?
Well, yeah.
And now
the early warning systems have all been taken, or not all, but a big chunk of the most important early warning systems have been hit, including the all-seeing eye and in Qatar.
Yep.
That has something like a 5,000 mile radius that's so necessary for Israel's Iron Dome to be even pseudo functional. You got to have this whole array of U.S. early warning systems that have all been there's like 8 of them that have been eliminated. So they have maybe, I don't know what the percentage is from what they would have been at full capacity, but it's really, really reduced. This Iron Dome isn't really working out.
Yeah, and it's important to note that again, this is just information that's out. Who knows how accurate anything is these days? But a Chinese ship is the one that is providing all the intel. There's a Chinese ship in the Persian Gulf that's providing all of the targeting intel for Iran to take out these systems. And that ship has not been targeted by the U.S. Navy. It hasn't been, and there's been nobody's addressed this at the Pentagon. Nobody's addressed the fact that this is the reporting is that China is basically providing all of the satellite imagery and the real time information on on targeting for the Iranians. So, and then now we also have reporting. I wrote about this in the news brief this morning that CENTCOM is now cannibalizing PACCOM's THAAD missile systems, missile defense systems. So now there's even videos and images of U.S. military dismantling their Patriot systems in South Korea to ship them over to the Middle East. Because they're running out, because they're running low on these interceptors in Israel. So my theory right now is that it seems to me that Israel's been begging for this fight for how many years? 50 years. So they've been begging for this fight with Iran. 40 years. Bibi Netanyahu gave a press briefing or whatever, put out a statement where he said, I've been looking forward to this for 40 years. Naftali Bennett said the same thing. 40 years I've been trying to get this, we've been trying to get this war happen, and it finally has happened, thank God. So they've been begging for this fight for 40 years, and now they got it. And they don't seem prepared for it. They're up against a much stronger military, and it doesn't seem like the U.S. is even capable, is either unwilling or incapable to defend Israel from Iran. And now Trump is saying, like I just pulled this from the time of Israel, and this kind of speaks to what General Kane said and what happened with the Barack Ravid, Mark Caputo reporting. Here's Trump. This is one of the top stories on Times of Israel right now. Trump, war to end soon, practically nothing left to target. This is a Barack Ravid report that Axios just published this a few minutes ago. And then Israel's response to that is there's no time limit. Like we're not ending this thing anytime soon. So I think what's about to happen, Matt, is I think we're going to see the U.S. step away and say, you know what, we're done. Like mission accomplished, right? Like we took out the Ayatollah, mission accomplished. We're walking away. Good luck. See y'all later. And Israel's going to keep going. And I think the plan here, if there is one, is to allow this thing to play out, because the Greater Israel Project is not stopping. There is no negotiating with religious zealots who believe that God has given them this right to this land. You can't engage in diplomacy with that. You can't exercise political leverage. There's no stopping them except through kinetic force, right? So what's the apparatus that you use to stop them? I, for a long time, thought that it was going to be Russia that might step in and be the neutral party, but it looks like it might be Iran. And Iran is, again, my understanding is that Tel Aviv is getting pulverized. And there was even psyops out the other day that Netanyahu's brother had been killed, Ben Gvir had been killed, and David Barnea had been killed. Now, Ben Gvir has put out a post saying, I'm still alive. Go F yourself is what he said. I am still alive. God be blessed. Go F yourself. But there's just a lot of interesting things that are happening here. And I think that this might be like the final, like Israel's final stand against against Iran. And the fact that Trump is pivoting towards an off-ramp after saying last week, I'm the one who actually kind of forced Israel into this. Like maybe I'm the one who actually forced him to do this. And now Israel is saying, all right, well, now that it's happening, now that we're going full tilt and we're in this, we're doing it. And then again, the way I analyze these situations is I always look at how are these leaders behaving? Like, what is their rhetoric? How are they responding to the storylines? Because who knows what's actually happening on the ground? Who knows what's real and what isn't? But when I see Lindsey Graham running around screaming that the Arabs need to jump in and fight, and the Arabs are saying, no, thanks. We're not getting in and fighting. The Israeli press or the Israeli government put out reporting the other day that said that the UAE and Saudi had launched missiles at Iran. And both the UAE and Saudi said, this is a lie. We have not fired any missiles at Iran. We have no plans to fire missiles at Iran, and we are not getting involved. So they're clearly psyops happening.
Yeah, MBS shut down Lindsey Graham, I know, very recently, saying know your place, when Graham was making claims about what Iran has been doing to Saudi Arabia as far as launching attacks and terrorist acts. And that was good. Also that they didn't fall into the trap where Aramco got attacked, and evidence is pointed to the fact that was not Iran. Why would Iran do that? Out of destabilization that would cause internationally, including to their own allies that they vitally need to be in a stable position amongst the BRICS, would be irreparable. So, or not irreparable, but at least terrible. So the fact that both Iran said that they didn't do it, and then Saudi Arabia also said clearly, we don't think Iran did it, that only leaves one culpable hand behind that kind of operation too, which would be Israel. So that's good that people are keeping their heads on their shoulders. And if as you say, if the case does unfold whereby the U.S. extricates itself from that region, that would put Israel in a bit of a bind, in a bit of a pickle, so to speak. And that might accelerate the Samson option. That if they feel like they're in a corner with no hope and they feel existentially threatened, the Samson option might be pulled. That, for those who don't know, that's basically the kill everybody, use all your nuclear warheads to basically commit suicide, but take down everybody around you, including your allies, while you're doing it.
Yep.
As the good old story in the Bible showcased. So, but they didn't have nuclear weapons back then.
Samson and the Philistines. Yep. Samson tore down the temple and took them all down.
Yeah, and that would imply possibly a solution to some of the problems in a weird way, but also a lot of tens and hundreds of millions, I would say, would probably also have to die amongst the Arab nations. I can't imagine that they would be very happy about that outcome too.
Yep.
So it's troubling. It's troubling, but these are the dynamics in play as they are. Like we're just trying to look at and analyze the data as it is. On that note, actually, one thing that's a little bit causes a bit of discomfort. I brought up the Modi thing. Modi was in Israel, right? A day before the war began, and did you follow what he was saying or what was arranged between?
I didn't listen. I mean, he addressed the Knesset. I didn't listen to his speech, but I mean, my takeaway from the reporting on it was basically that Israel was aligning itself with India and basically trying to make India like its preferred partner, almost like it's pivoting away from the U.S. or at least trying to create a similar relationship that it has with the U.S. with India. That's what it seemed like. I mean, Modi. I caught some of the clips. Modi was saying, India is Israel. Israel is India. I mean, he was saying some crazy stuff about ethnic, like a shared ethnic heritage or something. It was crazy. It was weird.
Yes, it was. It really was weird. And it caused me to sort of think a little bit more about because there's something about Modi that I genuinely like. Then there's something about Hindu nationalists and something within the BJP party that gives me the heebie-jeebies, to say the least. Mm-hmm. And people have seen the many Hindu nationalists with Israeli flags and in India, which seems to have this. There seems to be this narrative that's been baked in amongst a faction, or an important, powerful faction within India, within their elites, that somehow Israel came out of India, that there's this weird historic millennial connection between these two peoples, and that the destiny, the eschatology of Israel is tied to the eschatology of India in some weird Kali Yuga sort of scenario. Now, one thing that Modi accelerated when he got in there was the thing that you and I talked about, which is this beautiful temple. It's this Hindu temple to Ram, a mythic, pseudo-mythic character, probably based on a real person in deep history, and turned into a bit of a mythologized figure that was born in a certain area in northern India. Now, this Hindu temple that was inaugurated, I think, in 2024.
I remember this.
Yeah, you showed a video, and again, it's a beautiful temple.
Beautiful temple. Yeah, I mean, it's amazing the craftsmanship that they put into this. Yeah.
Yeah. But then, as you scratch on the surface of that story a little bit, it has a lot of overlap with the Al-Aqsa Mosque Solomon Temple problem, where for centuries and centuries, there's been this dispute about this particular area that today hosts, and has since like 690 AD, has hosted one of the most holy sites of the Islamic world, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, built up during the Abbasid dynasty, overseen by weird Sufi builders that advised the new government in Baghdad, which had a huge influence. I mean, that was the Abbasid dynasty was big. They just had kicked out the Umayyads that went to Spain a little bit earlier. And these strange Sufi builders, as the story goes, advised them where the location should be for this shrine, this mosque that became the Al-Aqsa Mosque, which happened to be this site that the Jews also really took very seriously, because that was also the holiest site for the Jews, where the Solomon Temple was supposedly also built, supposedly. Now, in the case here with this Hindu temple, as from the Guardian article that I'm showing here, Modi inaugurates Hindu temple on site of raised mosque in India. This mosque in India was torn down by riots in 1992, and it had been there since the 15th century or early 16th century, but I think the late 15th century, and it was in honor of the first Mughal sort of Muslim emperor, but also was seen as a a super holy shrine for the Indian Muslims. So when these riots by Hindu nationalists were sparked, which tore down this thing and killed like 2,000 civilians, mostly Muslims living in that region, the worst thing you would want to do once it's torn down is to then build a shrine right on top of it. Like, if you want to create intercivilizational anger, that's what you do. So that was something Modi also chose to make a high priority, and they finally inaugurated and opened it up. A lot of Muslims right now are really unhappy about that. So for him to then go to to Israel, and then I listened to the speech that he gave, and it was nuts. He was the first Indian prime minister in history to go to Israel.
Is that right?
Yeah, because he went there in 2014 when he first became prime minister, but that was the first time ever, and then he went back a couple of times since. But before that, Israel was firmly like amongst the non-aligned movement during the Cold War. They were not pulling into sides. They were always like anti-colonial. They're at the very foundation of Israel in 1948. India protested, saying they do not support the creation of this ethno-nationalist state. So that whole tradition was really broken with Modi, who's got this completely different paradigm. So most recently, when he showed up there on February 22nd or 27th, he gave the speech where he basically calls for the vision of this thing here, the India Middle East Economic Corridor, saying this is the future of India and Israel, which basically passed through the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Israel it's an alternative to the Belt and Road Initiative,
of course, in the North-South Transportation Corridor
as well. Yeah, and both of those two corridors are vital for the multipolar alliance, and they also need Iran to be in a good place. If Iran's, for whatever reason, lit on fire, those two corridors that China and Russia want so desperately are going to be annihilated. And then this thing, which I always thought was it was first announced under Biden in 2023, this corridor here, and it really didn't seem to have much behind it. It was just an idea on a blackboard, but it seems like maybe that is a factor in driving certain bad decision makers or bad decisions being made by fools forward. And the other thing he brought up in his speech was this I2U2 military alliance with India and Israel. It's kind of like a quad, right? It's like a NATO-like quad defensive system in the Middle East. Oh, there you go. You already had it up.
Yeah. I was about to pull this up, but finish your thought, please.
Oh, yeah. So I've heard a lot of people who are well-intended MAGA people telling me that Iran is NATO. Iran is the city of London and Iran is NATO. And that's why it's good that we're bombing NATO and the city of London, which is Iran, in their weird hypnotic.
It's the Promethean people are pushing that, and everybody keeps sending me these like clips and articles, and they show up in my chat and they like post the stuff and it's crazy. Like they're really pushing this Promethean stuff where they're all claiming that this is the city of London.
I used to work with these guys. I used to work with Barbara Boyd and Susan Kinner for many years. I departed back in 2016 due to certain toxicity reasons, but they overall were historically anti-war and were the ones originally exposing the lies about Iran's weapons of mass destruction program that never existed. They legitimately got rid of that in 2003. There's no evidence. There's think tanks that repeat unproven statements that become sold to us as if it was fact that Iran has this secret nuclear weapons program, but that even comes from MI6. And these people back 10 years ago, 15 years ago were the ones proving that. So there is evidence, like they know what they're saying is not true, but the fact that they're still saying it causes me to ask some questions here about what's the motive, because the real city of London and NATO in the Middle East, it's not Iran. Iran's been punished and sanctioned like crazy because they've been resisting the city of London pressure to get a private central bank to get their economy to the global markets and other things. It's Israel that's if you want the city of London British Empire in the Middle East, you got to look at who created Israel out of the British Mandate Palestine, and that's it. And the NATO structure, it's what you've shown right there on the Jerusalem Post. That's what it is. It's partially Turkey, but even they're trying to break free and have a bit more sovereign independence. And it's this thing where you literally have Modi's people and Benjamin Netanyahu's people talking about also inviting in friendly Arab Gulf states and friendly African states into this new security pact. That would look a lot more like a Middle Eastern NATO. Even the Jordanian king had even floated this idea a few years ago, which was luckily not accepted back then. But
pull that map up again, though, because what you see is noticeably missing from this trade route, Iran and Russia, right?
Oh yeah.
Bandar Abbas, which is like that dot at the UAE, like that second stop heading from India to the UAE for that very first stop, right across the water, like Strait of Hormuz. You have this port, Bandar Abbas, which I know you're familiar with. Billions of dollars poured into Bandar Abbas over the past few years to build that out. And the Saudis even invested significant money in Bandar Abbas. And then I remember it was a big story when Saudi received their first shipment of freight through Bandar Abbas from Iran, because it represented this normalization or pivot toward normalization between Iran and Saudi Arabia. And so, and again, like the Promethean people, they were also pushing with the Maduro stuff, that Maduro was an MI6 agent. He was working for City of London, and he was like a City of London. And it's like, that is completely inconsistent with the history of Hugo Chavez and Nicolas Maduro. Like, if you actually understand what they were about and who they were opposing, they were opposing George Bush Sr. and his friends in the oil industry. Like, that's literally who Hugo Chavez was fighting in the 90s, and who threw him in prison when he tried to overthrow the government through a military coup in 1991. So it's pretty silly to make those assertions that Nicolas Maduro is an MI6 asset working on behalf of the City of London. Clearly, like, they wouldn't be sanctioning Venezuela if Venezuela, also another country that doesn't have a private central bank, that isn't part of the Rothschild central banking network. And clearly that organization has pumped a lot of money into their marketing, because we've been talking, like, privately in the Badlands chat, we've all been asking one another, like, are you seeing it? Like, all over my feed? Like, they're all over my feed, even though I don't follow any of them. So they're getting, like, inorganically boosted and spending money to get inorganically boosted. And that raises suspicion in my head. I'm just like, what is this? And when their assertions are so just like off the wall, like that's kind of crazy. But anyway, I don't really care. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I mean, part of the stuff it gains traction because it uses a lot of truth. Because it is one of the things that I've noticed is that nobody will ever because it's not just them, because it's also many other influencers have adopted that narrative because it's so satisfying. It seems to be very satisfying at explaining a lot of why we seem to be doing the opposite of what MAGA was set up to do, which was to stop the wars. And now all of a sudden that's happening. So it's very, very dissonant for people, and they want some satisfying explanation. And that seems to meet a lot of those standards of like checking off the box of, okay, it's not Iran, it is the city of London we're bombing. So it's, it's not Venezuela, it's actually the city of London. So it helps to sort of clear the conscience for people, which they desperately want, because nobody wants to be the bad guy in the movie. Nobody wants that. But so the thing that is, I think, what I've noticed in listening to Kokinda and Boyd and others who repeat this line, or who really advance it, is that it acknowledges the role of the City of London and the CIA in 1979 in overthrowing the Shah, which is true. That is true things that are stated. The Shah back then, for all of his problems, he at the very least did want to follow the Japanese model of industrialization. He didn't want to take the oil revenues, the profits from the oil shocks of the early 70s, because oil jacked up in price, so the OPEC nations benefited a lot. He got it in his head that he could use that massive amount of profit to reinvest in an industrial program, including with a focus on nuclear power for Iran for the future, because oil is still very volatile. It's still not something you want to be on forever. Nuclear power is where it's at. So he got to deal with the French, with the Germans to go and help him build these reactors. That was verboten, so he had to be eliminated. He also, he put a.
Well, he also refused to sign the 25-year, or to renew the 25-year consortium agreement of 1954, which expired in 1979. And that the consortium agreement is what officially gave the oil back to British Petroleum after Bangladesh took it away and nationalized it. So when he said, no, I'm actually not going to renew this consortium agreement, that was the incentive for the MI6 and CIA to say, okay, you know what, you got to go now. Like you're not going to like renew this agreement. That was literally the whole reason we installed you, was to get those agreements on the books and to get our oil back. And for those who like are confused by this, it's like, again, yes, I mean, you are the one who's educated me so much on the City of London. I mean, Warhamster as well, and the role that they have played. But we're kind of ignoring the fact that Israel was literally created by the City of London, that the City of London and the banker class from London are the ones who created Israel. They're literally the ones who worked with Hitler to move all like millions of Jews from Europe to Palestine in the 1930s. Like this happened. So again, like if we're going to assign like the City of London to one side in this conflict, they're clearly on the side of Israel. Like that is.
Well, yeah. It's like to decontextualize history is so bad. And I mean, because while we acknowledge the City of London and British intelligence role and Israeli intelligence and the CIA in doing that regime change in 79, did the new guys, the Ayatollah, who is a highly compromised character who is working in France and reinstated there, the first Ayatollah Khomeini, when they installed him, did they get what they wanted? I mean, no. He still nationalized British Petroleum? He still did that. He didn't renew the consortium agreement. He didn't like undo the ending of the Savak, which is what the Shah had done. Is he finally canceled the Savak, the secret police that were co-created with the Mossad, both created and trained by Nazi killers.
I was literally about to say it. I was like, wait a minute, who created the Mossad again? Like who created and trained the Mossad? Oh yeah, MI6, right? Like
MI6, the CIA and Nazis who were brought in to train them in all of the dark arts of the Nazi intelligence apparatus and paramilitary groups. They were all brought in. Otto Skorzeny and others were brought in to Iran, into Israel to train. That's even admitted by Israel Times. Yeah, like we had Nazis training us in the 60s. I don't know why that was happening. I can tell you. So that all of that was taken down. It wasn't reconstituted by the Ayatollah. The major Muslim Brotherhood adjacent, I guess you could say, Salafist groups that were used to do the most radical destabilizations on behalf of Western intelligence in Iran in the 60s and in the 70s, leading up to the revolution, was the Mujahideen Iqalq that was set up in 1967 or 66 as like this hard. It was like it's a religious cult. It sounds and looks a lot like the Muslim Brotherhood, even though they say that they're not. It seems like it is. It's a very Jesuitical thing inside of the Muslim world that was used as this incendiary movement, which did make it the revolution of 79 possible. They were the ones that Britain wanted to be the dominant players controlling Iran. Did they? Because they got sanctuary in England. They got sanctuary in the US, even though they were labeled domestic international terrorists for decades. They still got protection once Iran immediately expelled them in 1980, and they were no longer allowed to have a seat in Iran. They couldn't have a seat at the table. They went into Iraq, right? They played a role in the Iraq-Iran war. That was actually a factor, is that this massive paramilitary secret army apparatus of fundamentalists were expelled from Iran and then set up shop in Iraq, promoted and given support by Donald Rumsfeld, who was doing military deals with Saddam Hussein in the early 80s, militarizing, weaponizing these groups in order to prepare for a new war to get Iraq and Iran, who had everything to gain by working together to just slaughter each other, which they stupidly did for many years.
Yep.
But Iran then stopped.
Rumsfeld sold Saddam Hussein our chemical weapons from World War I.
Yeah,
which was against the law, because we signed a treaty in 1975 saying that nobody could transfer or sell chemical weapons to anybody. And then 5 years later, Donald Rumsfeld sold Saddam all of our old chemical weapons. And then 21 years later, that was the excuse to go into Iran. Hey, we know he's got chemical weapons. Did you hear? He has chemical weapons. Oh, how did he get those chemical weapons? Oh, the Americans sold it to him. Donald Rumsfeld sold it to him. I mean, what the fuck, man?
What the fuck?
Yeah.
Exactly. And then that became a perfect excuse later on for us to go in for Desert Storm both Desert Storm, because Saddam Hussein's bad, so we had to do that. Even though Madeleine Albright admitted that our war in Iraq, including the sanctions, involved the killing of upwards of 500,000 children, and she said that was money worth spent. It was worth it in this disgusting 1999. I think it was a 60 Minutes interview when she was asked, is it worth it having 500,000 dead children on your hands? And she said, yes, it was worth it. That was the Secretary of State.
That's like Lindsey Graham rhetoric.
Totally on that level, yeah. Except she was on the Democratic flavor, the exact same thing. It's the same uniparty. And then they did it again for bombing, Iraq in 2003 with Shock and Awe Part 2. So, but they did it. They're the ones that's the reason why Saddam Hussein had the weapons of mass destruction, the chemical weapons to begin with. So you got this whole thing where Iran has been trying to fight back against this thing. They've avoided, they along with China and Venezuela and North Korea, they're amongst the few countries in the world that have rejected a private central bank, which is what the city of London wants everybody to have.
Syria, Libya. I mean, basically just go through the list of all the places that have been villainized and that have seen war delivered to their doorstep. And you can basically deduce that they have rejected a private centralized bank and the Western banking system established by the Rothschilds.
Yes, exactly. It's not a coincidence. So again, people need to really arm themselves against these very seductive narratives and tropes that we want to believe is true, but it's so ridden with fallacies of the last thing I'll just say on this note too is that in Iran there was, I mentioned this our last show, but under Rafsanjani, the president from 1989 to 97, and then President Khamenei from 97 to 2004, there was a consistent purging of both the most radical, rigid Salafists who wanted to, go back to the kind of neurotic Taliban kind of reading of the Quran and Sharia law. They wanted that kind of women should not have even an inch of skin shown, or else it's sin and they shouldn't be allowed, be permitted to get an education.
Haram. It's haram.
Yeah, exactly. These characters were there, but there's a battle that took place to remove them from policy, isolate them, and then introduce a much more liberal, and I say liberal in the best sense of the word, view of encouraging women to take part in society, to get an education, to go back to university, to be integrated, to have a foreign policy as well, centered around what Khatami called the Dialogue of Civilizations program, which would be to look outward, to have faith that other cultures have something beautiful within them that you can work with and speak to, which is why he went to Rome. He went to Florence, Khatami, and gave these wonderful speeches calling for a new Silk Road. He went to China in 1998, calling for, again, the revival of the Silk Road as the new spirit of cooperation to get over this neocon Hobbesian agenda that had been, showing its face in a bad way over the dead body of Yitzhak Rabin and demonstrating that it was going to go into overdrive in the late 90s, which it did. And there was
that was also when Fox News was created. 1997 is when Fox News that was when they launched, was 1997.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. And so they of course contributed to that whole psyop of against the Middle East. And what's interesting, I do want to get back to Israel here, but real quick, like this bombing of the school children, of the schoolgirls, 175 little girls killed, terrible. The White House and Pentagon have acknowledged it happened. It's not like a war propaganda, but as Trump said, he said, whatever the report says, like, we're investigating, whatever the report says, I'll accept. So let's just wait and see what the report says. I'll accept it. So we'll wait and see that. But what I thought was interesting, I mean, I say this tongue in cheek, but it's a terrible tragedy. My entire life, I'm 37. My entire life, I've been told that women are not allowed to go to school in Iran, and that's one of the reasons that we need to topple their government and give them like a liberal democracy, is because the way they treat women. And here we have, my understanding is that this school was on like a Navy base, and it was the daughters of the IRGC officers, right? Meaning meaning like theoretically the most radicalized religious leaders in the Iranian society were sending their girls to school to be educated. And nobody's talking about the fact that Fox News for the past 30 years has told us that women are not allowed to go to school in Iran. So which one is it, guys? Like,
that is hilarious, man. The irony didn't sink in until I just heard you use those very basic words. It's true. Like, we're all freaking out that Iran doesn't allow women to get educated. That's why they're bad and regressive. And yet a girls' school was also bombed. And people don't place the paradox together in their minds the way you just did. That's a very good point. And also, I didn't know that it was the IRGC. Like, that was a direct. That's what I've seen. The analysis I've seen. I mean, who knows? Like, again, like let's see what this report is. But the explanation that I've seen is that this school was on a Navy base. The Navy base was targeted, and so it could have just, it's a collateral damage thing. It's not. Yeah, no. Iran has like so many scientists, engineers as women. It is wild. Like, whenever I'm invited onto Press TV to speak as a commentator, the 60% of the time, the person who is the host of the TV show that's talking to me is a woman. It's like, sure, she's like decked out. She's decked out in the headscarf and all that. Sure, fine, okay, but they're giving a lot of opportunities to women that run contrary to the narratives.
Incongruent with the narrative that we're being told by our government. And I think that not enough people are asking that question. Wait a minute. So have we been lied to then? Of course we've been lied to. They've lied to us about literally every aspect of our reality. Like,
if you're not Muslim, they'll kill you. You will be destroyed and persecuted if you're in Iran. And it's like, well, but what about the 380,000 Christians living in Iran? What about every province in Iran has churches?
Yeah, what about, there's more Christians living in Iran than there are in Israel. It's like what are we talking about here? So,
Iran's actually protecting their heritage sites and sacred sites and churches, and Israel's like bombing them.
There are Jewish legislatures that serve in the Iran government.
Yeah,
like, there are Jewish politicians who serve in, like, when I learned that like a year or two ago. When I learned that, I was like, okay, we're clearly not getting the full story here in America. But yeah, so again, like, that is something that I like to see press a little harder, because these revisionists, they love to go back and revise history and act like they haven't told us this stuff for the past 30 years. Just like they told us 25 years ago that these people all want to kill us because we love Jesus. I've now learned that they also love Jesus too. So that was a lie. Like these are the contradictions that I look for, and I'm like, wait a minute. Like, I actually don't really have a problem with these people in the Middle East. I have a huge problem with you over here who have lied to me about some of the most important analysis out there, saying that we have to go destroy civilizations, kill millions of people because they hate Jesus and we love Jesus. That's literally what I was told 25 years ago as a kid. And I've been told that many, many times since then. And now all of a sudden we're going to gloss over that history and we're going to act like that didn't happen. I have friends who served in the military who said the military told them that. I mean, you had Hegseth talking about how this is like a religious war and like we're going to war for Jesus. And it's like, well, wait a minute, but these people love Jesus too. Whatever significance Jesus is in Islam, that's not my religion, so I don't need to defend it or whatever. But they don't hate Jesus at all.
No, I'm going to show an image here from here, share screen. This is right after the French Olympics. July 2024, Iran protests offensive Jesus depiction at Paris Olympics.
Yes.
Summons French ambassador.
Yes.
Oh, they don't have the picture because Iran actually commissioned these massive banners. Yeah.
Yes.
Around their highway systems showcasing the Last Supper with a clear message. Yeah. Clear message saying that Jesus is a sacred person that we should honor and not deface like the Satanists did in France during the Olympics.
Yeah, I believe there's also an airport in Iran, if I'm not mistaken, that is named after the Virgin Mary.
No, that's one of them. It's a beautiful subway system. Subway station. Yeah.
Yeah. It's beautiful. I mean, it looks like a cathedral. I mean, it's like beautiful.
Yeah. Compared to like New York subways. Yeah, it's definitely pretty.
Yeah.
In honor of Virgin Mary. Yeah.
Yeah. So here, just so people can see it, I just pulled it up on Google. Like, this is a subway station that's named after the Virgin Mary, and look, it has like artwork and everything. I mean, what the hell, you know?
Yeah.
So clearly, like, we're just being lied to all the time, and we should be angry at our abusers. Like, we should be angry at the people who have lied to us so they can enrich themselves, start wars, and kill people. And so again, my analysis of this situation kind of is consistent with the pattern that I've seen of the entire Trump administration 2.0, which is, it appears to me that Trump has basically opened up the tent. He's allowed all these Zionists to come in. He's given them the stage. He's handed them the microphone. He's been like, all right, tell us all about your program and your agenda. And he's basically allowed them to expose themselves. Now, there could be good people in this administration. Like, I don't know. I don't trust anybody in our government at this point. Like, I think everybody in our government is suspect because of the things that have happened over the past 10 years plus. But it's certainly notable that like Mike Huckabee was made the ambassador of Israel. I called that the day he said that back in November of 24. I said, this is some sort of an op, because there's no way that he earnestly wanted Mike Huckabee to represent us in Israel. This has to be an exposure op. And then we saw the whole Tucker Carlson thing. But going back to India, Israel, like, let's just wrap that up. This whole thing, like Netanyahu said a few months ago, he wants to start his own defense industry in Israel. He wants Israel to be autonomous. Like, he wants to like self-reliant when it comes to the military industrial complex. I don't think they're ever going to be able to, like, even given an infinite time scale, I don't think they're ever going to be able to be like producing every component. Basically, what is, as my understanding is that Israel excels in the really, really fine, like they excel at making microchips. They excel at making the really small plastic components that go in like medical devices, that go like in the missiles at the very end. But I don't think they have an industrial base to produce like the raw materials that are necessary to manufacture, like at the first stages of manufacturing, whether you're talking about the defense industry or the construction industry or whatever. They're not really set up for that. It doesn't seem. They certainly don't have, I don't think, the labor force to do that. So I think maybe part of this deal is about pivoting away from America and pivoting to India and getting India to be the workforce that's going to make the early phases of these missile components, and then then it can be shipped to Israel for the more finite, the more nuanced, high tech stuff. But that's just speculation. That's what I think is part of what's happening here, because even Laura Loomer's admitted, like, yeah, we need to end the relationship, the military relation, like the financial aid dependency between Israel and America, not because it's harmful to American politics or American interests, but because like it creates a leverage point that can be exploited against Israel. We need to do this for the benefit of Israel. Israel needs to cut off America in order so that it can't be exploited or leveraged by like our leaders like Trump. So again, like the analogy, Matt, that I've been using the past couple of days is, and actually I've used it way before this, but so the analogy that General Quast used years ago, which I think is brilliant, is that geopolitics is like the playground where all the kids convene, right? And like, if you've ever watched kids on a playground, like, they kind of govern themselves, right? They kind of like organize and they do their own thing. And they're all very different. They're all very unique. They all have different personalities, right? And watching them kind of figure out how to get along with one another, it's an interesting dynamic to observe. That's so true. That is kind of what geopolitics is. It's the playground where all the kids meet. And the way I would describe Israel is they're like the small guy with the big brother who everyone's afraid of. And nobody's going to mess with that little kid because they don't want the big brother to come kick their ass. And over the time, that has cultivated a hubris in this kid who now goes around and bullies everybody and picks fights. And I knew people like this. I have close friends who were like this when we were younger, who are big friends, are the really big guys. Whenever they were around, these other guys would run their mouths, right? Run their mouths, talk shit to people, start fights, pick fights, because they had the big guy standing behind them, and no one was going to throw a punch with this guy standing behind him. It seems like the situation we're in now is that big brother has figured out, you know what? This kid's turned into a little jackass, and sometimes the best way for a bully to learn his place in the world is just to get punched in the face, right? And that's all it takes. And once that happens, it immediately instills a sense of humility. It's kind of a reality check, and that's how a bully basically gets put in his place, is that he picks a fight with he picks on the wrong person, who turns around and cleans his clock. And then he thinks twice about the next time he's going to go pick on someone. And that's kind of what I think is happening here, because to your point, Israel has started a war with Lebanon since the Iranian war started, like in the past, 10 days, 11 days. They've started a war, like they restarted the war with Lebanon. I didn't know that they were going in like in the north and central Lebanon. Like I thought they were just fighting in the south. But Hezbollah is now fighting Israel all over again. It's very clear that they are on this path for greater Israel. And I have a clip that I actually want to play of, where is this? Yeah, here it is. Of Pierce Morgan interviewing this woman, Daniela Weiss. And this woman is very notable because she was kind of like a big red pill for me like 4 years ago in really understanding what Israel was really about and the secret that is the Greater Israel Project. This woman was a mayor of a township in it's in the West Bank, but it's an Israeli township. She was the mayor. She was born and raised this place. She was the mayor for 10 years. So she's an Israeli politician. She has enormous political clout, a very large following. She famously was hosting tours where people would pay money, like Israelis would pay money, and they would get on a boat and they would go along the coastline of Gaza, and they basically would like drink champagne and with bullhorns and basically be like, "This land is ours, get out." I mean, she is a monster. If you've ever seen interviews with her, she is a monster. She's been asked straight up on camera, "Are you okay with killing Palestinian children?" She's like, "Yes, absolutely. They're terrorists. They deserve to die." So she's an absolute monster. So let's watch this clip, and then we can kind of discuss the reality of what this represents. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm not sharing my screen.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Let me restart this.
You say the Palestinians don't exist.
I didn't get your comment.
Your position is that the Palestinians don't exist. So what are they?
It's an invention. It's an invention that is not as secondary to the important fact that the Jewish nation, that the land of Israel belongs only to one nation, and this is the Jewish nation. The Palestinians are Arabs who try to compete with the big success of the Jews in the land of Israel. And actually, the word Palestine was used by Adrian, the Roman emperor. But the modern Palestinians are Arabs who want the same place that the Jews made a paradise of. They want to take it from us, and we won't let it happen.
But actually, what's happening is you want to take their land, isn't it?
Okay, so you make your position, I make mine, and the world will judge. And I mean, it's interesting that when there are historical facts that can be proven, and then you cling to what? I really don't understand what history you represent.
Well, just taking Ms. Weiss, taking your argument to its logical extension, then you believe that Israelis and Jewish people should be entitled to all of the West Bank and all of Gaza. If it's your land, as you say.
Not just all of the West Bank. It's not bank. Bank is a narrow place.
Okay.
It's the major part of the area between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean.
So you would like, just
it's
to be clear, you would like all of the land from the river to the sea to be Israeli Jewish, yeah?
I want all the land from the Euphrates to the Nile. What do you mean? Why hide the?
I'm just curious what you
history.
I'm curious what you intend to do with all the Palestinians who currently live there.
Those, you see, I trust in God. I trust, and I live by faith, by emunah, and by the Bible.
Yeah. Well, what are you going to do with all the millions of Palestinians? What happens?
I'm telling you, Joshua, the first settlers, he gave me I
don't need a history lesson. I'm just asking you, what do you intend to do with the millions who currently live?
Exactly.
Have you ever heard of Amalek?
What Joshua did.
What are you going to do with them?
That's exactly what he had. When Joshua came with us from Egypt, he had to cope with 7 peoples who lived here. Why God chose to bring us from Egypt to such a complicated place and not to Canada, I don't know. But the fact of the matter is that Joshua said, those who accept our sovereignty, our government, will stay. Those who fight, will fight them. And those who do not accept our sovereignty, our government, they will go to other places. There is a clear formula. So I do not have to
there is
invent.
A clear formula.
It's actually by the Bible.
Yeah, but again, to be clear, your clear formula, there's a legal term for it. It's called ethnic cleansing. What you're saying is if Palestinian people do not subscribe to the fact they should be ruled by Israel and have you as their sovereign state, then they have to leave, right? So 6-7 million Palestinians would have to leave and go and live elsewhere. That's your position.
Yeah,
just do what Joshua did. Yeah, easy.
Yeah, and for the record, what Joshua did is they razed cities to the ground. They killed every man, woman, and child. They even would kill the livestock. That was their practice. Even the livestock were unworthy because they were dirty. They were.
Well, Vanessa Bailey, in my interview with her, I do this show called Beyond Geopolitics every once in a while, and she was giving me concrete examples of the spraying of glyphosates and things onto agricultural regions. So by Israel, since the peace treaty, the ceasefire was declared between Israel and Hezbollah, they continued. Israel, it's a daily thing of asymmetrical and sometimes direct outright attacks on the agricultural systems of Lebanon to diminish an already handicapped nation from having an economy and being able to support itself. They're constantly going to war on the food systems. So yeah, this woman is something else. What a piece of work that woman is.
And I've seen interviews where she said much worse than that, where she's straight up been confronted about like 2-year-old Palestinians being killed, and she's like, yeah, who cares? Of course they deserve to die. Like I said, but the thing that I do appreciate about her, I think she's repugnant. I think she's repulsive. I think she's just it makes my skin crawl. But I respect the fact that she's honest about what her view is. Like she doesn't, I mean, she started to kind of like get into, she started to speak in platitudes towards the end when he was kind of trying to box her in to tell her, like, what are you going to do with all these people that are in this land that you want? And that tends to be kind of the position here. But when you look at like the way that the Zionists tend to operate in America, because we're a Christian nation, they know that they can't come out and say this stuff. So they lie. They lie about what their true intention is. They come out and they say, oh, this is actually just about making sure that the Jewish people have a nice little corner of the world to themselves. They won't tell you the truth. This is about empire building. This is about conquest. This is kill everybody in the land. Amalek is the analogy that Netanyahu always uses. And that's, again, kill all the women, children, livestock. So we're at a point now. The point is, Matt, is that we're at a point now where this is ubiquitous. This is at the surface. This is no longer crypto history. This is no longer crypto politics. This is no longer like confined to the corners of the internet, small podcasts like this one. This is now out in the open. This is now Tucker Carlson talking about this with his millions of followers. Pierce Morgan talking about this with his million. Like, this is mainstream political discourse now. There is no hiding from this fact that this is what these people are. And I'm a little grateful that the ones in Israel are so like, they don't hide it. They don't mask it because, again, they're not a Christian nation. So they don't follow the same core principles that we do here in the West. I would not consider Israel to be a Western nation. I don't think that, because I think a Western nation is a nation that's founded on the Christian doctrine. But that's why they have to be so deceptive. Like, Christian Zionists have to be so deceptive when they talk about this stuff in America and in Europe. And that's also why the general public is so ignorant as to what is actually happening here. If you just listen to what the leadership, this is a political leader in Israel, is saying, you'll be like, wait a minute, how the hell could we possibly support this? Now, somebody in the chat, they're saying that in the chat, they're saying, let me see.
Yeah, I saw somebody say that your mic wasn't great. It sounds pretty okay to me. I don't.
Oh, you know what it is?
That's better. Whoa.
Yeah. It was the mic on the camera. The mic on the camera.
Oh.
Yeah. New camera, and I didn't think about making.
It wasn't that bad. Don't worry. But this is great.
Yeah. Okay. So just to finish the thought out, it's like somebody in the chat said this. I'm going to pull this up because I think this is a great point. And this is something that I wrestle with as I'm doing this analysis. And like, I'm like, man, this is Thomas Mafik. It's an awful lot of death, destruction, and expense to expose all the psychopaths in the U.S. and Israel. And that is a fantastic point. That is something that like I've considered so much in thinking about this. But again, I don't think this plan, like what's happening right now, like I don't think that this is like Donald Trump and the White Hats being like, oh, like let's start a war between Iran and Israel. This is something that has been in the works Donald Trump's entire life. Long before Netanyahu said he has been personally lobbying for this for 40 years.
Yeah.
40 years. So and I've been saying this for the past week, the momentum to do this is so much bigger than Donald Trump. This was a momentum. This was going to happen inevitably. Whether it happened in 2026 or it happened in 2036, what is happening right now was always going to happen. The first time I appeared on Badlands in June of 2023, I said, I think they're going to start a war between Israel and Iran because it was just obvious. Like that's the obvious play here. Iran is the big military power that threatens Israeli hegemony in the region. So starting a war between those two that would then suck in the rest of the world into a World War III situation is the logical play for dispensationalists who want to bring about the end of the world, and they want to rule over the ashes. And so, again, if you are an alliance of sovereign leaders, a sovereign alliance who is trying to thwart this plan, and this is just me speculating, a theory, facilitating this to some extent probably makes sense. I mean, there was no stopping it. Like, maybe you can convince them to hold off for a few more years, but then Donald Trump's gone, Putin's gone, Xi's gone, all those world leaders are gone, and there's nobody there to stop them. And then they just come out and then they get their way, right? So doing it in a more controlled setting where exposure can happen. Yeah, I mean, kinetic conflict, there is no avoiding it. There's a reason why I've been standing on the table saying, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. We don't want war, because war is awful. I've had people come in my chat and accuse me of being a hippie and accuse me of being, a wuss and like a dove. It's not that I'm afraid of a fight. It's that we shouldn't go to war unless we absolutely have to, because war kills people. And not just soldiers, but innocent people. Little girls die in war, guys. That is the reality. But these people that we're up against in Israel, and not just in Israel, it's the whole diaspora. It's a diaspora, not just of Jews, but of psychotic Christian Zionists as well. And I don't even want to call them Christian Zionists anymore. I want to call them Jewish jihadis, because that's what they are. They're Jewish jihadis. They want this, and this is going to happen whether or not you like it, whether or not Donald Trump is president, whether it's 2026 or 2036, this is going to happen. And so accelerating this and condensing it into a timetable where it's a 12-day war like it was last year. Understand something. Donald Trump ended the war last year in June, a 12-day war, right? He dropped the bomb, ended the war, and that set Iran up for this moment, as I understand it. Because what Iran did is they then embarked on a path to engage in devolution, initiate continuity of government. They can't be decapitated. There is no decapitation move you can do. You can kill off their leadership 100 times. And as I understand it, they have granted authority to the lowest level missile commanders to pick a target and fire. They don't have to call in for central authority for permission. It's just pick a target and fire. And who knows how many of these missile commanders they have out there. But what we do know from even like the most conservative analysis is that they have tens of thousands of these missiles. And so they're set up to pulverize Israel over and over and over again until Israel submits and surrenders. And I think that's what we're going to see happen. I think we're going to see Israel in a situation where they are facing existential demise, and the Samson option is absolutely a concern. But I don't know if there's any other way to stop the Greater Israel Project. You can't negotiate with them. You can't ask them nicely not to do it, and you can't even incentivize them with like stuff, like economic trade deals, peace, whatever. They don't care. They don't want any of that. They want the land.
It's definitely a bit of a Gordian knot that we've permitted ourselves to get, double binded into, as Artie Lang from Tavistock had called it, the double bind. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. In some ways, certainly my concern always, like I said, is just that there is, it seems, these Satanists that seem to infiltrate various religions, Muslim and Christian and Jew, that we always talk about. Everyone wants to there's this tendency of framing things between like us, we're the good guys, our nation's the good guys, that other nation that we're being, told is our enemy must be the bad guys, or this religion is the bad ones and our religions are the good ones. And then you get like splintering of like the Sunnis think the Shias are bad and vice versa. And the Protestants think the Catholics are bad and vice versa. And then you got the subgroups in every single faith. But what often is missed out is like this integrated satanic high priesthood, which has been working together since the days of ancient Babylon and before that, which is very good at masquerading and infiltrating things they want to destroy from within. And they're always working together. The Kabbalistic Jews, the Kabbalistic Christians, the Kabbalistic Islamic, Batinia priesthoods that created the Hashashin secret society that worked with the Templars. Like, they're always working together. At the end of the day, there's this inner core of evil that people should be focusing on understanding. And my concern is just that they've built up this trap in the Middle East to usher in new millennium that begins with a punctuated cataclysm, a sacrifice of a people or many peoples. And, when you look at the writings of the people who did the most to set the stage for the creation of what became Israel as a state. And here I'm, going back a century ago, looking at the Plymouth Brethren, the Darbyites, like George Pember, leading intellectual of the Plymouth Brethren that generated Aleister Crowley, who was obsessed with Mystery Babylon and ushering in the Antichrist. All of these guys were thinking, how can they, in the 19th century, set the stage? They were working with Lord Palmerston. They were working with, Lord Shaftesbury and other Zionists to create a ritual, kind of like some sort of a witchcraft invocation to do things that would carry out Book of Revelation. Even the decision to pick Jerusalem as the location around 7 hills or 10 hills, 7 hills, I think. That's actually not, I was just reading an article going through how even the decision in the 1860s that this is where this was going to be built up by the New Templars of Germany and the King Edward VII acolytes around Charles Warren, who was excavating Solomon's Temple. The idea that it was in the location that it's currently been selected is a complete fraud. They just wanted to find a topography that had 7 hills that would then be able to justify their particular reading of Revelation, whereas the evidence was that the actual Jerusalem was located 100 miles away in an area that only had 2 hills, and they just ignored all of the evidence that was where it was located because the 2 hills it wasn't satisfying to their idea of eschatology, so they had to pick this other location fallaciously.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And then you had the whole Gog Magog, interpretations. What is that? Who is that? Is it a person as it implies in some places? Is it a nation? Some people say it was the Russians. John Hagee says it's the Russians and Israel.
The US. I've heard people say it's the US. Yeah.
There's so many, and it changes. In the 16th century, there were presumptions that it was the Spanish Empire and the British, and then it changes based on the geopolitical, changing winds of each age, to be reinterpreted to being whatever's expedient for who's ever in political power. And at the moment, it's this. But these guys they were obsessed with this idea of recreating Babylon to usher in the Antichrist in order to bring in this end times. So my fear is that they've done a pretty good job of creating this multi-layered time bomb called Israel that has all of these trigger points, with the Samson Doctrine, with getting them nuclear warheads illegally from the United States in the 60s. Even the Manhattan Project days, there was people around Aleister Crowley's circle,
JFK tried to stop them. JFK tried
stopping them. Didn't work out. But now they got it. And so are we falling into this very difficult, I don't know how to defuse this kind of bomb, but it's shit, how many billions of people have to die to resolve the issue? Does anybody have to die? Is there not a better way? And I keep on thinking to myself, it seems like the formulas for what can work and what truly scares the oligarchy was laid out pretty well by the Belt and Road Initiative, by the spirit of cooperation and building up big projects that Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat were trying to do. That sort of the contour of this American system, how it expressed itself in Eurasia and in the Middle East in the best of times, is there. I know that can be worked with, but it's who is left in Israel to represent that Yitzhak Rabin tradition? I see people are there who are very reasonable people and moral, but they're not anywhere near political power. The murderers of Yitzhak Rabin got power.
They don't even have a political party. There aren't any political parties that are out there that they might have one seat in the Knesset, right? I mean, it's that, it's really sad because I agree with you. I've been saying this, I have looked, I don't see the party of peace in Israel. I don't see the political party calling for peace. Even the ones who are saying, okay, let's sign the 2-state solution. Let's make peace with Palestine today. Let's remove that talking point from the world stage. But we want war with Iran. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. Yair Lapid said that last week. He said, or 2 weeks ago, he said, Netanyahu, if you start a war with Iran, I will put all of our differences aside and we will get behind you. And we will, this is the opposition leader in the Knesset to Netanyahu. So there isn't a party of peace. It's really sad, but that's the reality. By the way, the city I live in, Richmond, founded on 7 hills. I'm pretty sure DC was founded on 7 hills. Rome was founded on 7 hills. So it's this is a pattern. There's a pattern there. I don't know.
There's a pattern. There's definitely a pattern. Yeah. The New Jerusalem eschatologists are.
And all of them do. I think Richmond and DC both draw that distinction to Rome. And I don't know where Rome gets it from, that whether that's like eschatology or whatever, but I think that is based on like the Roman Republic, like that.
Yeah,
all those
well,
ideas.
it's pre-Christian eschatology that came out of the Sibylline. So there's something called the Sibylline oracles, the Sibylline books that were used by Tarquin when Tarquin had you know what the Sibyllines are?
Is that like Sybil? Like you're referring to Sybil from the biblical sense?
What
Is that
or
like the crypto? It's like the crypto.
It's witches. Basically, it's
like witches. Yeah.
Sorceresses and witches. Yeah, that were like.
There's no Sybil in the Bible, but I've heard of like the Sybil witches. Like.
There were 10 dominant Sibyls in the ancient world. The Cumaean Sibyl, the Apennine, and there's the Delphic Sibyl, the Oracle at Delphi. Basically, the same thing. It was the way the world was wired to be run, and each one would like utter out cryptic poetry on. Usually, they were stoned out of their heads. So they were doing kind of like stream of consciousness stuff when you're stoned. It kind of seems profound. Maybe if somebody's just really thinks that you're touched by the gods, right? And they would be, you'd have scribes take down the stuff, and these books were then organized by a high priesthood of interpreters to then be published and become the dominant manuscripts that would be used by the Roman Senate, or earlier the Roman kingdom, at the end when Rome was becoming a republic, or even when it transitioned into becoming an empire. And basically there were stories that were very colorful, all focused upon end times scenarios of like, the 7 moons will rise, or the 7 suns will rise, and 3 hawks would come down. Very Nostradamus-y type of language, right? Very open to interpretation. But it shaped policy. This stuff decided when Rome would have an alliance, when it would go to war. They would consult the Sibylline oracles, and only like 15 people were vetted to be part of the high priest that would interpret the oracles. It was kind of like I Ching. You just open up the book of I Ching, and somebody would just, they would like, or you do some runes. You throw some runes down, and then you have some druids interpret where the runes fell, and they then say whether you should go to war and rape and pillage the village or not.
Yeah.
Or who do you sacrifice in the village for Odin? And so very similar kind of vibe, but these were a much higher level, and they shaped Rome, and they were integrated with. Once Christianity was more successful at at competing with these like immoral, debauched Roman cults, of Mithra and Cybele and Attis and stuff, and Isis, they were just not doing it. Jesus's followers were doing a much better job at demonstrating that why this is a much more viable religion than all of the other dominant religions. But the Sibylline oracles became revamped and Christianized, so that for the first few centuries, really up until the 13th, 14th centuries even, they were used by the leaders of the Crusades as almost co-equal to the Bible. And so they would shape how certain poetic imagery or certain messaging within the book of Daniel or the book of Chronicles, or even in the book of John, how you would interpret them according to the utterings of these Sibylline oracles. A lot of the Gnostics were also followers or even creators. The Gnostic competitors of the early Christians were actually generating these books as well that corrupt people, usually often within the Benedictine monasteries, were saying should be treated as equally holy. They're like the new revelations, just like we had the prophets of the Bible. We have new prophets today who are still touched by the Holy Spirit. And so we should take what they say as if it is co-equal to what Jesus was saying. And again, it was always focused on end time scenarios. This is the origin of millennialism. So what Darby was doing when he was generating his premillennialist dispensationalist sort of redefinition of how God dispenses his will onto the world in 1,000-year cycles, punctuated by cataclysms. That stuff was taken directly from the Sibyllines, the Sibylline oracles. So
interesting.
It's a fascinating world of study, and it's very difficult because the only people who seem to go there are like hyper dry, apolitical academics or witchcraft people into Satanism who also respect it. But normal people who like just care about the truth never seem to go there or analyze it. So it's difficult to research this stuff, but I've been piecing it together more and more now. But that's really what gave rise to the Crusades. It's what's given rise to like every bad idea that contaminated Christianity and made Christianity become a tool of empire and destruction has a lot to do with this and this priesthood that uses this and generates this.
That's fascinating. And yeah, and so then because I agree with you, I think that there is the potential for overreaction. And then, like you said, I think on the very first episode of this show, when you were doing it with Sean Morgan, you even talked about that, how Israel might be like a sacrificial lamb for like the deep state, like that their intention is to destroy it. I think Henry Kissinger said that in 2012. So that's a reality, and that's something that has to be, I think that balance has to be struck. It seems to me like, Trump seems like he's not going to let that happen. Like he doesn't want that to happen. He doesn't want to see any civilization, I think, get destroyed. You would hope, as much as, I can make that a assessment analysis about somebody who I've never actually met, as much as anything. But again, it's like, if this is inevitable, this conflict, which I think it is, I think this conflict is absolutely inevitable. You can call it biblical, you can call it prophecy, you call it whatever you want. I don't like to go there because I think that is stealing God's glory. I think that is taking, that is assuming divine wisdom, which is basically like anointing yourself as God, which is, I think, one of the big sins that I think these people are doing. These Zionists are doing, is that they are basically anointing themselves as God by saying, oh yeah, this is the end of the world. This is the book of Revelations happening right now. You got to be really careful with that, because you are stealing God's glory. And even Jesus said, only my Father knows what's going to happen. I don't even know what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. That's so important. Like, as soon as human beings start imposing their presence to make the end of the world happen artificially, like when George Bush starts like bombing Iraq and saying like, yeah, I'm ushering in Gog and Magog, when he's giving actual interviews saying like, yeah, now's the time for Gog and Magog. And it's like, yeah, but why did you just lie about weapons of mass destruction? Why did you just do all of these lies to start bombing civilians?
Yeah.
But I don't think God is happy with this. I don't think this is how God really wanted the Messiah to come back. I don't think that's just part of the plan.
Yeah.
I think you're cheating.
Yeah. Yeah. And the idea that you're going to force God's hand, which is that's what the dispensationalists are doing. That's what they think they're doing, is that they're going to force God's hand by helping these Orthodox Jews summon the Antichrist, what they consider the Antichrist, Moshiach. That will then force Jesus to come back and fight him. And then that's going to force the end of days. It's like, well, if that actually does end up happening, guys, I don't think Jesus is going to be very happy with you that you force this all to happen. Now, maybe it's God's plan, maybe, but you can't possibly know that for sure. And if you claim that you do, then again, you're anointing yourself as God, and you're claiming divine wisdom, and you're stealing his glory. And that is one of the worst possible sins you can commit, in terms of just from a mindset, theological standpoint. And the other thing is, like, when people talk about like, well, this is the end of days, so we need to be on our best behavior. It's like, that's like the kid who's going to be well behaved on Christmas Eve because Santa Claus is coming the next day. It's like, are you actually doing the thing for the right reasons? Like, are you following the teachings of Christ for the right reasons? Or are you doing it as opportunism because you are seeking a bounty, a reward for yourself? That's why Jesus said, only my Father knows the timeline. Just live your life like, according to these teachings, and just assume that you should always be living this way, and not that, tomorrow is going to be the end of the world. But anyway, but getting back to the geopolitics of it, we have to talk about this stuff now, because this isn't just like academic theory anymore. Like, we're fighting a war right now in Iran, and there are people, dispensationalists, saying we're doing it for biblical reasons. This is like because God promised the land to the Jews. That's what Mike Huckabee said. It's what a number of other people have said. So we have to talk about this. We have to confront this reality. You heard what that woman said. There's a lot of other people who speak like that in Israel, and in this diaspora. And this is a geopolitical thing. So now this is impacting geopolitics. It's impacting the way governments interact. It's threatening world peace. It's threatening the future of humanity, really. So yeah, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to pick it apart, and we're going to analyze it. And people need to get comfortable with that. This is a new age, I think, in political discourse. It's a good thing that we're getting comfortable talking about this. And again, I'll leave everyone kind of with like a white pill here, because the thing that I'm really encouraged by in this situation that I was a little worried about when this started. Same thing I recall saying you were worried about when October 7th happened, is you were worried about the Muslims like going in and attacking Israel and then and getting sucked in like to the trap, the bait, taking the bait, right?
Right.
They've all been given the bait to attack Iran. Turkey's been given the bait. The Arabs have been given the bait. Pakistan's been given the bait. They're all being given, and they have historical differences with Iran, right? It's not like Iran and them are great historic friends. However, all of them have come out and said, no, we're not going to. I even saw the deputy foreign minister of Iran come out a few times and say that there were false flags being conducted against Turkey and Cyprus and the Arabs. Again, who knows if it's true? Fog of war, propaganda, whatever. But the fact that Erdogan, like Sharif, the prime minister of Pakistan, came out and said, like, we're not going to attack Iran. We're not going to do it. We're not going to participate. And the Arabs came out and said, we're not going to attack. Like, we're not participating. Lindsey Graham is livid over that. And then finally, I'll show you this. There's two clips that I'll show you. The first one is, they're both of Erdogan. This is from a few days ago. This has made the rounds. This is after they purportedly shot down some rockets that were shot into their airspace, the Turks. And he says, despite our repeated warnings, provocative steps are continued to be taken against Turkey. No action shall be taken that casts a shadow over our 1,000-year-old neighborly and brotherly bond with Iran. So he's basically coming out and saying, like, we're not going to fight Iran. It's not going to happen. And then this is, I think, more recent. I just saw this was posted by DD Geopolitics. And I think this is in Turkish, but he says, we do not have a religion called Sunni Shia. We have one religion, and that is Islam. So what we're seeing now, Matt, is a major stress test for the Ummah, the community. This thing that has formed in the past 5 or 6 years, that's never happened before in the history of Islam. There's never been an Ummah. There's always been, whenever there was hegemony, it was always a caliphate, meaning there was one leader who, like a king, who ruled over the whole empire. This is actual coalition building of nation states that have plenty of differences. You got Arab monarchies, you got Turkish democracies, you have all sorts of different ethnic differences, you have religious differences, and yet they're not taking the bait, they're not fighting one another. That's what I think they were, the black hats, the cabal, were trying to get them to do. They were trying to get them to fight Iran, because then it almost doesn't even matter what happens with Israel and Iran, because then the region just kind of falls into total chaos and disarray. They're holding they're staying their sword. They're not taking the bait. And that is the white pill in all this, because if these guys, who we've been told my entire life, they're Muslims, they're crazy, they can't be reasoned with, they're totally irrational, they want to kill everyone who's not a Muslim, they want to conquer the world, all that nonsense that Lindsey Graham puts out on a daily basis and Ted Cruz puts out on a daily basis. Here they are brokering peace in the case of Qatar and Oman, brokering peace all over the world, and not taking the bait to jump into a war when some of them have legitimate reasons to jump in and alleviate some of that pent up aggression. And the guy who seems to be at the tip of the spear, along with MBS, and I think MBS is largely responsible for piecing this all together, Erdogan, he's the guy who Trump championed back in 2019, said he was his guy. He reiterated that back in September when Erdogan visited him and they signed the nuclear deal. And when Assad was overthrown back in December of 2024, Trump immediately posted on Truth Social and gave all the credit to Erdogan and said, Erdogan's the guy. He's my guy in the Middle East. He's going to make sure this all works out. So, the fact that Erdogan's now standing up and saying, we're not going to have a war, we're not going to fight one another, we're going to figure this out, major white pill for me. Major white pill. You're muted.
Yes, I was. Well, I think that's probably a good place to end. And I, maybe next week. And it's also, I think, a good reason why Naftali Bennett immediately, as soon as the bomb started falling on Iran, immediately started the narrative messaging saying that Turkey is the new Iran. And a number of, again, unfortunate MAGA influencers that I've been watching have also been repeating in lockstep this Israeli intelligence narrative as well, that Turkey is also the city of London. Turkey is also the new Iran now, to prepare our minds to create a space for the setting of the stage of a new conflict. But what do you got there with Bennett?
Yeah, this is because you're right. His rhetoric has been saying that there was that clip from like 10 days ago that went viral of him saying that, Turkey's the new Iran. This is from this morning. I haven't even seen this yet. I just saw this posted. But maybe we should listen to this, because This is him reiterating again. This is the guy. He's running in an election against Netanyahu in October, and he's the favorite to win. Either him or Yair Lapid are the favorites to win the election in October to be the prime minister of Israel.
Oh, there's no sound.
Oh, whoops. I'm sorry. I just saw that for some reason StreamYard's been doing that. They'll like break the sound from your share screen. Hold on.
Based on comments that you said in the past.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Let me restart it.
Let me just ask you whether there's a risk of further confrontation with Turkey based on comments that you said in the past.
Well, we need to ensure that Erdogan doesn't create a new alliance of radical Islam Sunni version, meaning an axis between himself, Julani, Qatar, and Hamas. We've been facing for many decades the Shiite radical Islam, and I hope that Turkey doesn't choose to foment terror and Islamism in its power. It's up to Turkey ultimately. If they seek peace, we definitely want peace. But if they try and surround us with terror, we will not sit idle.
Let me just.
So again, what Erdogan just said is there is no Sunni, there is no Shia, there's just Islam, and we're one community. So that, I think he's trying to diffuse that narrative that like they're trying to turn Sunni and Shia and weaponize it against one another. And again, I think really what like landing this thing, I think really what we need to do now is we need to look inward. Like we need to look at ourselves in the mirror, because whatever happens with Israel, we'll see what happens. But regardless, we need to confront this reality of like, what are we supporting in the Middle East here? Because there are tens of millions of people who I think in America who do support Israel because of their upbringing and their religion and whatnot. Christians, I mean, not necessarily Jews, although I do think that obviously the Jewish diaspora is there. But understanding like what is it that we're actually supporting here? Do we understand what the end game and the goals are? And educating the public, because I think when the public is educated, they'll be less likely to subscribe to these ambitions for empire, which is clearly what the ambition is here. And even though the Christian Zionists in America have denied this for years, they've denied this. They've cast it as an anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. But here you have the Israeli leaders saying, no, that is exactly what we're doing. We are building an empire from the Nile to the Euphrates. And we were willing to kill everybody who gets in our way, who's going to stop it. And, obviously that is incongruent with Christian doctrine. And so we have to have that conversation now, unfortunately, because it has now infected our politics, and it's infected our government, and infected our foreign policy.
Well, I'll be very curious to see what the U.S. does in the days and weeks ahead as far as the panning out of this hypothesis. So we'll see if they extricate themselves. Will they leave the little dog, the yapping little dog, by itself to face the consequences of its abuses, or is it going to be something else? We'll see. I guess we'll circle back next week, and I'm sure the world will give us a lot more to talk about. Do you have any people who would thrown in to the chats for I know that there's one comment that I'd seen actually that I wanted to just say something about earlier on. I don't even know who said it, but it was somebody regarding child marriages in Iran. Yes, there is Iran is one of the 45 countries in the world that still, unfortunately, allow for child arranged marriages. That's true. India too. There's a number of countries that allow this. That's bad. It's also the problem with religious institutions. It wasn't that long ago that in the Christian world that was still a thing. We've been able to get over that, and other countries are still behind in the curve. Now, the thing that I will say about this is that they aren't alone. There's 45, and they don't have an incentive structure in place to advance pedophiles the way we in Pizzagate land here have a built-in satanic pedophile network that helps to incentivize and then elevate pedophiles into positions of power. That's not really the case. It's more of a, old religious traditions that are still holding on thing. And number two is that Iran in 2019 made a commitment to completely ban it and phase it out. So that's another thing that the Iranian government has been moving towards. They put policies on the table that by 2030, you have to be 18 to get married. So there is all of that nuance to bring into that conversation, because this is being done, I know, in the Fox News space when Iran is characterized as a variety of things: state sponsor of international terror, the cause of all of our problems, more like Mordor. It's basically Mordor.
Moral justifications for war. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, like that, like what you just described is awful and it shouldn't happen. But these cultures, these foreign cultures around the world, it's not our job to police these cultures and change them. It's certainly not, I think, a wise calculus to wage war against a culture simply because you disagree with their practices or find certain practices that they engage in despicable. But I will say this: if pedophilia is your motivator for warfare, Israel is notoriously a pedophile sanctuary. And there actually is currently the top cybersecurity official in Netanyahu's government has been charged with felony pedophilia charges in the state of Nevada, and fled the country and refuses to come back and face the charges. And he's being protected by the state of Israel. So if pedophilia is your motivator here, again, let's make sure we're staying on task here, and we're not just indulging confirmation.
Yeah. I don't know how many Ayatollahs and IRGC leaders were on Epstein Island.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So while you look through to see if there's any chats, I'll just read the last sponsor for today. It's a recording. St. Patrick's Day, Tiny Bright.
Do your thing.
Legend says, on St. Patrick's Day, a beard without oil is just a chin with ambition. But a beard with soft disclosure beard oil, that's true treasure. Spiced vanilla, naked, smooth as a leprechaun's getaway plan. Soft enough to impress your barber, bold enough to confuse a baby goat. And this boar bristle brush tames your beard like it holds the crown coin. Every bottle is American made, which means when you buy Soft Disclosure, you're supporting 6 American small businesses. That's not luck. That's capitalism with cheekbones. And while you're at it, try our mint green deodorant, because even legends need fresh pits. Soft Disclosure. Go for gold. Visit softdisclosure.com and use promo code TINYBRIGHT for 15% off.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. Promo code does not apply to bundle discounts.
That was hilarious. I've never seen that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Soft Disclosure has some of the best marketing out there. We have our top people on our running our marketing campaigns. So I think we're good on rants and boosts. So everyone, please hit the thumbs up, share the show, and we will see you next week. Oh, and by the way, in 4 minutes, Ash and I are going to do part 3. We've already done 2 parts, just analyzing the Tucker Mike Huckabee interview and kind of going through watching it and just analyzing the theology and the geopolitics of it. So join us at 2:00 Eastern. That's in 3 minutes. We'll see y'all there.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.